Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Glad to know you're still tuned in to Early Exchange right here on SOUQ News Television. In the second part of the program today, we'll be taking a look at Lagos State government as, of course, Lagos State is synonymous with traffic and also high rent payment. I'm talking Lagos, I'm talking traffic. Well, blessed.
Yes.
What other what other thing do you think is synonymous with Lagos?
Okay, I'm talking commerce, I'm talking Lagos.
Oh, well, that is it. But then with commerce comes migration.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people want to come to where it is.
To where it's happening.
The beehive of activities. And with that, there's a need for accommodation to house these people. They're not going to be on the streets for crying out loud. And with an increase or a surge in influx of people, there's also commensurate increase in rentage, you know, and that's what Lagos State is, you know, seeming like, because it feels as though rent payment platform might increase annual rent for Lagosians. And who are the persons who are going to bear the brunt of it? People who are not homeowners, the tenants. I don't want to say you and I, because you never can tell. You might own a property somewhere in Banana Island and I'm just here. You know, you're thinking that you're in the same shoes as a lot who are struggling to keep up with bills. But then we've seen issues, or rather solutions to this in some way. Some persons have said, oh, they want to do monthly rent platforms. Some organizations have come up to offset your rent and you pay them instrumentally and stuff like that.
Paying installments.
I don't know. So you know, there's a lot of sides to it. But then if we notice a significant increase, I mean, would it take a toll on ordinary negotiations, especially considering the economic situation and the high cost of living, as it were? You know, they say you can't even go pricing food. Petrol is still very much up there. And then next to that, we're looking at accommodation. You know, some people have decided to move from the highbrow areas, move from, you know, the very urban centers to local, less developed, further away from the city center, and now commute. And, you know, takes a toll eventually on the persons. You're leaving your house very early, you're getting back at night, and you're spending probably just a couple of hours
in that
house, which you've paid very exorbitant amount for. So we'll be speaking with a real estate coach and an advisor, the CEO of JADDON Properties, Orji Chinedu Michael. A very good morning to you, Orji.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so let's get into, you know, the meat of the matter. Who determines the rent? Let's start off from there. Government, landlords. I mean, what are the forces that determine rents in Lagos?
Okay. I think the landlords determine the rent, not the government, because the landlords go through a lot to invest in landed properties and start off building projects. After all of this, they determine how much they'll put it the rent, because they know what it costs them to get to that height, right? So to me, I believe it should be the landlord, not the government or the tenant. Thank you.
Now, when we're talking about housing in Lagos, no doubt there's a high demand for accommodation in Lagos because of the population and being the commercial nerve center of Nigeria. But when it comes to rent, Lagos has about the highest rent rates in Nigeria. We know that, yes, it's a commercial city, but do you find the rent charged as commensurate to the standard of the houses available in Lagos?
Okay, so for this, I would say that the renting and the cost of rent in Lagos is very high, because it's really a lot of people, and there is no measurement of anything. Everybody can just come fix their price. Even one that started with as low will want to high his own price with every other person. So in Lagos here, a lot of people are going through a lot, because rent is something so alarming, and it's causing a lot of people homelessness out there, causing a lot of people to stay stranded. So I believe they should look into it.
All right, Orji, let me take this, straight into what we have today, the Lagos State rent payment platform. So the Lagos State government released plans to build a payment platform where, according to them, will be co-owned by the Lagos State government and would also generate funds. So the idea is that revenue will be generated by charging a certain percentage for every transaction that is paid through the platform. Now, let me take it back to the first question I asked: who determines rent in Lagos, government or the landlords?
Or even some associations.
So what forces determine that? Because if you're going to be having some sort of rent payment platform, right? How easy would it be to migrate all the landlords to be there, and then you now have like a cap? A two-bedroom would have to go for this price. I mean, it doesn't depend on whatever you put in your house, but then this is the cap for, whatever. I think, if I don't know, part of my ignorance, if that's the way it's going to go or not.
Okay, now talking about this issue of government trying to generate this, well, it's 5%, right? And they are going to get this fund. We are still looking at if it will come from the landlord or if it will come from the tenant. Now, government have every right to do what they want, right? Because according to the law, all landed properties belongs to government, right? So, but these people, this landlord that invested the money. Let's, for example, we're talking about the cost of house in Lekki is not the same with the one at Sangotedo. So maybe sometimes the cost of granite, cement, and the rest when building these houses, you know what it costs you, right? So if government should come in to say, okay, this there's a two-bedroom is going for 2 million naira here in Lekki. Two-bedroom is going for 1.5 million naira here in Aja or so. So, and the one in Lekki is building with the same amount with the one in Aja. You see, so sometimes it's, for me, if you ask me, I would say the landlord determines how much to put the rent, but government can only regulate it to make it work for the tenant, right? So in this area of generating this amount, and we are looking at government is trying to work and open the platform, an online platform where people will be paying, tenants will be paying online, and government will be getting 5% from each, and their target is at least to an extent of generating over 2.5 billion naira in a year, right? So it's going to be a very big issue to Nigeria because we need systems to make this thing work. It's going to be a very big issue. So thank you very much.
All right. We also have a legal practitioner joining in the conversation, Victor Jibunoh, who specializes in property law. Now, let's look at this initiative of the Lagos State government. Already, it's a burden on rent payers in Lagos because you don't just pay rent. There are other charges associated with rent in Lagos. There's the legal fee, there's this agency. There are some other fees, even the caution fee. There are some other fees that the names can't come to mind now, but there are at least about 3 or 4 different charges that adds up to the rent, and then they say it's total package. So rent is on one hand, you have other fees that makes up the total package. For instance, your rent is 1.2 million. You may have other charges cumulatively making it about 2 million naira or a bit less. So let's understand where the Lagos State government is coming from in setting up or planning to set up the rent payment platform. Is it to ensure that when people pay rent, the rent eventually gets to the homeowners and the people get the houses? Because there have been stories too of one chance, people paying rent and they not eventually getting the accommodation or the apartment for which they paid. Is it to sanitize the industry, or strictly for revenue generation? Help us with this, please. Victor Jibunoh, Esquire.
Yes. Good morning, Blessing. Happy to join you this wonderful morning. So, to your question, well, it is my opinion that the purpose of the Lagos State government coming up with this platform, you know, to my opinion, would be for the benefit of the tenants. Because if you examine the Lagos State tenancy law, which is actually the law that regulates the issue of landlords and tenants in Lagos State, you would see that the provisions of that law is drafted in such a manner that it gives the tenant so much power, authority, as against the landlord. There are a lot of provisions that talks about rent, because of course, who pays rent is the tenant. So there are a lot of provisions that regulates rent if you look at the Lagos State tenancy law. So I want to believe that if anything is to go by with this policy, it will be drafted, or it would be established with the same intention and mindset that Lagos State had when they came up with the Lagos State tenancy law, which is to empower the tenants as against arbitrary abuse of rents, or the powers of the landlord against the tenant. I read in the papers where Fashola had actually encouraged landlords to collect rents monthly. That he would encourage landlords to collect rents monthly, and not the usually 1 year rents. Even in some places, I know some landlords even take more than 1 year rents for yearly tenants, which is a total breach and violation of Section 4 of the Lagos State tenancy law, which talks about collecting excess rent as to what a tenant is supposed to pay. If you are a monthly tenant, the law says as landlord, you should not take more than 6 months in advance from that tenant. And the tenant likewise should not pay more than 6 months in advance for the rent. And if you are a yearly tenant, a landlord shouldn't take more than 1 year rent in advance. Likewise, the tenant shouldn't pay more than 1 year rent in advance. And if any of the parties, breaches this provision of Section 4 of the Lagos tenancy law, it has a repercussion, it has a punishment, which is upon conviction, you will be liable to a fine of 100,000 naira or a 3 months imprisonment. So I want to believe that the Lagos State government coming up with this platform is a way to enforce the provisions of the Lagos State tenancy law, which talks about rents, how much rent should be paid, how rent should be paid, how rent should be collected. So I believe that the platform will definitely be in favor of the tenants.
All right, let me take it from here. There's a report by Buy Let Leave, which is titled Residential Occupier Report in the first half of 2024. And that stated that 63% of respondents, especially Lagosians, prefer a yearly rent payment over a monthly payment. And some persons have clamored, I'm very certain, I personally would love to pay rent monthly. Do you think monthly rent will reduce the burden of rent payment? Or, because Blessing had mentioned something about the caution fee, the agreement fee, and not to take away the fact, I hear you're an Esquire, the barrister agreement fee, not to take that away, but all of those fees associated, can they be minimized or reduced, especially when you have more or less a monthly rent payment system put in place, probably even backed by law?
Yes, if it depends on the circumstances, like I always say, If you want to pay rent monthly, depending, it might work in your favor, if you have a stable income, every month that some amount of money is coming into your account, and out of that money that is coming into your account, you are already thinking of, setting aside certain amount for your rent for the month. So in that case, it can work well with you if you want to pay rent monthly. Then on the other side, if you are one who doesn't really have a stable income, or your salary, you don't have your salaries, or the nature of the work you do, you don't collect salaries monthly. Funds comes into you, in a way that you cannot really predict. So you might want to go for a yearly rent, because you don't know when funds is going to come into your account. So you want to prefer that you pay your rent yearly, so that you won't start having issues of sourcing for money every month to pay rent when nothing is coming into your account. So it depends on circumstances. That's the reason why the Lagos State Tenancy Law throws it open that you can have monthly tenants, you can have 6 months tenants, you can have quarterly tenants, you can also have yearly tenants. And the law is clear, succinct, as regards to, if you are a monthly tenant, you should not pay in excess of 6 months. And if you are a yearly tenant, you should not pay in excess of 1 year. Now, if we start paying rents monthly as well, that still doesn't stop the other rates or charges that follows payment of rent. If you want to collect rent monthly, for example, of course, we know if you are collecting rent in a year, for example, of course, we know the standard charges. If you want to charge for agency, it's 10% of the annual rent. Okay, you want to charge for legal, it's 10% of the annual rent. You want to charge for caution, it's 10% of the annual rent. And if you want to charge for service charge, it's 10% of the annual rent. So if you want to decide to pay monthly, what is the monthly rent of the apartment that you occupy? They can as well charge 10% of the monthly rent the monthly rent of the apartment you occupy, for you to pay those charges monthly as well. So if you are paying your rent monthly, it still does not stop those charges from coming in as well.
The Lagos State rent payment platform would charge 5% transaction fee each time rent is paid through that platform. Who's going to pay that? Who's going to bear the cost of that 5% transaction fee? Is it the landowner or the landlord in this case, or the tenant who's going to bear the burden of that 5% transaction fee?
Now, if payment of rent will be going through the Lagos State platform, then it means that some people are going to be rendered jobless. I mean the agents, because it means that the Lagos State government is now trying to be the agent, working for both the landlord and the tenant. So if I'm going to pay my rent, for example, using the Lagos State payment platform, then the Lagos State will be the agent. So instead of paying the 10% to the agent, this time there is a reduction in the amount you are going to pay for agency fee. So Lagos State is taking 5%. So like I said, I'm very sure that this payment platform that is being or that is to be established by the Lagos State, of course, is tainted towards reducing the costs of trying to secure an apartment as a tenant in Lagos State. Going by the present economic realities in the country. So I think it is a way that the government is trying to see how they can reduce the cost that the citizens or tenants bear, in trying to secure apartment. Of course, housing is a very essential part of one's life. So I think it's a way of the government also trying to look in that direction to see how they can reduce the cost that tenants incur in securing apartment, going by the prevalent economic circumstances. So in that case, it will be that the Lagos State government is now acting as the agent. So the normal agent will usually have that pays 10%. I think that will no longer applies. So the Lagos State will be acting as an agent in that circumstances. So you pay 5%, and usually this agency fee is usually paid by the tenants because they calculate everything. You pay 10% of the annual rent for agency, So it is usually the tenant who bears this expenditure.
Now, you've used the word reality, and you know that there's reality, there's ideal, and there's reality. So let's talk about reality now. When a tenant wants to acquire an apartment or rent an apartment, so the landlord usually would give their account details so the tenant pays. Let's start from when the tenant gets to even know of the house. Who takes the tenant there? Who shows the tenant or the intending tenant of a free apartment? Is it the government that will begin to play this role that the agents play in connecting, being the middleman between the house owner and the intending tenant? Will the government have a portal that shows tenants available apartments? If the government is not going to do that and some agent is going to take up that role, would you say that after rendering service, they don't get paid? Now, if the agents will still continue in playing their roles, who pays them at the end of the day? Does it come down to a situation where there is payments here and there? You pay to the agents, you pay other fees, because I'm not sure that the government is going to stand as a lawyer or play the service of the legal practitioner, so they will not collect legal fees. So you still pay legal fees and every other fee, and then come again to pay your rent through that platform. The government take 5%, for which your landlord perhaps is going to impute into what makes up your rent. How do you see this playing out at the end of the day in real life situation?
Yes, just like you have said, in reality, we don't really have the full facts of this payment flat. I can't really, but myself, I'm speaking for myself right now. I don't have the full fact of this Lagos State payment platform and, how it's going to work, the aims and objectives of this platform. Now, if this platform is going to be only for Lagos State owned properties, if this platform is going to be for only for Lagos State owned properties, then okay, I can now say that it would be able to work, which means that it is only going to cover properties that are owned by Lagos State. So if you are a tenant and you want to rent a property belonging to the Lagos State, you go through the platform. But if it's also going to include properties not owned by the state, that is where I think there will be some little challenges in the area of, okay, now will the government ask or compel all landlords in Lagos State to register their properties under the platform so that they can be the one to regulate or, be the one to advertise where there is vacancy and be the one to set out agents to take tenants to those places to inspect, do the whole agency work so that, they can actually work for the 5% and to not be a case of some agent is taking someone to look for, to inspect, and at the end of the day, when you want to make payments, the agent doesn't get what is supposed to get, for the service rendered. So it's still early stages, looking at this payment platform, because I don't really have the facts. I don't really have the fact. In the reality, if it's going to work, then it will have to be a case where the landlord, the Lagos State government will have to compel all landlords to register their property via that platform, which is doable, so that they can be the one to regulate, where there is vacancy. There's a way you have to communicate that to the government, or so the government knows there is a vacancy. They'll set out agents who would take tenants for inspection. So I don't really have a fact. I don't really have the full fact of that Lagos State payment platform. But I know that whatever the Lagos State government is trying to work out, in as much as, of course, they might want to also generate revenue from that aspect, but it won't be at the detriment of tenants who are already going through a lot from landlords and agents to now start adding another 5%, haven't paid 10% agency fee already. So now add 5% as a result of using the Lagos State government to pay rent. I don't think that will be the case.
who has just been sitting patiently. There's no bone here, but then I want to toss this at you, Orji, real quick. There's this thing about properties in Lagos. Most of the houses, especially where I live, are old. And so can you really talk about increasing rent without properly maintaining those properties or improving, the property? And so you have the old bathtub, you have the old showers, you have, the kitchen with the old kind of tiles, probably from years ago. And then you're talking about increasing the rent, which for me, I think of arbitrary. On that note, what can be done, to actually, ask for maintenance or some facelift to the property? Because you see, some tenants who have, well, as long as they live in those houses, if they want to, improve the aesthetics of the house, they get to repaint themselves, sometimes even, changing pipes and all of that, just to ensure that they're comfortable during their stay in the property.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would just say this out of experience, yeah, because I do help people look for apartments as well. Now, most times, most of these landlords, if they need to increase their rent, what they do is they'll push it out to you. Let's say, for example, you're paying 1 million naira, they can come up with 1.5 million naira. Now, they know you will not want to pay, so because the price is high. Now, what you need to do is the tenant now moves out. Once he moves out,
Feels like we're unable to continue the conversation
sorry,
with Orji, but blessing,
last
this
update,
is
I'm bringing
some
the tenant.
situation. Okay, I think Orji is back.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, sorry
Archie,
for
please
that.
go ahead and respond to the question.
Okay, so now this increase of rent, and most times you go to an apartment, everything is as spoiled, and the landlord wants to increase the house. Your zinc is leaking, the bedrooms are bad, and along the line, before you know it, the tenants just have to move out. Once the person move out, the landlord do some little renovation and increase the price, right? So now this rent increase sometimes when you go to look at it will be difficult to get a better apartment now in Lagos, like a new apartment for a lesser price. Now it's talking about areas like Sangotedo, for example. If you must get an apartment that is clean, 2 bedroom, you are budgeting over 2 million naira in Sangotedo. Ajah the same thing. Go to if you want to get anything lesser like 1.5, Awuyaya. Now, a lot of people are moving from Lekki towards they go for Jacondi, moving down to Aja. Why? Because Lekki increases the price. You just do a little renovation, increase the price. So anytime a landlord wants to generate more money, they increase their price without even doing anything in the compound. So they know too well that once you move out, they are getting new 10% agency, 10% service charge, 10% legal fee, and the rest, right? So some of them believe that they are getting these things. Sorry, my light is off. Okay. Some of them believe that they are getting these things because they want to make more money. Now, nobody is checking them. Every landlord can put up one money. They are broke. They don't have money. They need money to do one or two things. They believe they have a property that can give them that money. So without even minding what you're going through in the house, you're running some, you enter some compound, you see that the compound is not well kept, everything is condemned, but they still want to increase the house rent because they believe this other person that is close to them that has a new apartment own is 2 million while they are collecting 1 million. So because this new person that is close to them is collecting 2 million, because and this one is a new apartment, they increase their own to 2 million. Now, once you move out, they just come, they do a little touch up, which you will paint it yourself. So, increasing the rent here in Lagos is something else. Every landlord can wake up one morning. Like, I have a brother who rented an apartment, 700,000, for example, and around Shangupedu. He paid not up to 1 year he has lived there. Before the rent will expire, the landlord increases it to 1 million. Now, what what did he do? He just say, okay, I can't pay this 1 million because this house is not working. Everywhere is scattered. This one is not working. Shower is not working. Tap is not working, and thereabout. The next thing, he needs to move out and go and look for somewhere else. He paid over 1.5 million naira for 2 bedroom apartment. Now that old apartment, the new person that wants to take it is paying over 1.2 million naira, but the landlord is paying 1 million naira, and there was no maintenance done. So the new tenant that is coming in will need to now bring his own plumber, um, electrician to start fixing, and that will cost him a lot of money. So now imagine after as a tenant when you move into an apartment, you first of all maybe your budget is okay. I'm budgeting 1 million naira for the year for the yearly rent, and total package might cost me over 1.6 or 1.7 million naira. Now, let's say this person has about over 2 million or 2.5 million in his account. After paying rent, he starts renovating another man's house. Before you know it, you finish doing all these things, and the year you moved in, not up to 2 months, you even enter 3 months before you know the year has gone to an end. You start trying to gather another money to pay the landlord. So it's so much more as in it's landlords need to look into this thing before they increase rent. They need to even look into it. So thank you very much.
Glad you touched on area maintenance because there's also maintenance fee charged. And when you look at the service rendered, sometimes there's no service rendered at all. It's just like you paying money for nothing. Let's look at compliance of the house orders, of the agents in what the Lagos State government is trying to achieve with the rent payment platform. Do you see a compliance there? What would need to happen for compliance so that if the tenant is who the Lagos State government intends to protect here, sanitize the real estate sector, that actually happens and not making the situation worse where rent is increased through this platform or from what this platform would do?
Okay, so if you look at very well from where I'm seeing it now, I feel this thing will make or cause price increase in rent because now these governments are trying to get 5% from it, and to their own, it's a business to them because they've already concluded that even if this platform is designed and the tenants are to be paying monthly, for example, they're paying monthly. Now, if 100 people, 100 tenants pay monthly, and they are likely to generate over 2.5 billion naira yearly with what they have designed, right? So this 5%, it will come from the landlord. That's one. It will not come from the tenant. Now, the reason why it will come from the landlord is this. The landlord will pay because the house belongs to them. But the next thing the landlord will do is to increase the price. Because the landlord sees as, okay, if I am paying government and you're paying little amount, it's not enough for me to. So they have everything now to just increase the price. Just like, for example, let's use bus drivers, for example. Now, when you enter a bus going to work, you don't pay the tops or the area boys that's on the way. The drivers do that. Now, a journey of 50 naira before 100 naira along the line it increased to over 200 naira, right? Now, if you ask the driver, he will tell you that, are you not seeing how much I am paying? You don't have anything to say, right? So if this same thing applies in Lagos State, the landlord will put the bills, but they will increase the rent. It's a must, and it will affect the low income tenants. It will affect them a lot because definitely they will increase the rent. Definitely it will affect. So the landlord will, but if the money is coming from the tenant to some extent, if I'm paying rent, I'm paying this amount. But there is no way even the landlord to do that. So they want to do their business. This is their house. This is their investment. Now they are paying just like land charges. You're telling tenants to pay land charges. No, the landlord pays it. So if they're doing anything, they're adding to what they are, if they're maybe leasing out or renting, they are making their money from it. They add it up. So that's just it. So thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to take this question now to Victor Jibunoh Esquire. From what we were looking at, there is no clarity so far as to what this rent payment platform will benefit, or what benefit it will bring to the tenant or even the landlords. What should happen from this point? If government is going to come into the transaction between tenant and landlord, should it be from a standpoint of revenue? You've talked about, I know you said that the act and the platform itself is designed to protect the tenant, but so far we've not been able to see how clearly it would do that. But in the meantime, what do you suggest that the Lagos State government do to avert a situation where it's not a worse situation for people trying to secure decent accommodation in Lagos?
If this platform is targeted at, making rent to be unreasonably increased in Lagos State, then it means that the policy itself might be running contrary to the provisions of the Lagos State Tenancy Law, which was actually enacted by the state as well to regulate the issues of landlord-tenant transaction. Because, like I said, even by Section 37 of the Lagos State Tenancy Law, it talks about the fact that a tenant can approach the court for an order declaring that a landlord has, increased rent arbitrarily. And once the court finds merit in that order, the court will grant that order that, yes, the landlord has increased the rent arbitrarily and will compel the landlord to charge based on the prevailing rent that applies to that area in question. And if the landlord fails to collect the rent, the tenant can go and pay that money, that rent, to the court. And when the landlord is ready to come and collect the rent from the court, the court will charge 10% of that amount that was paid as rent by the tenant to the court. So I want to believe that if this policy has it's to be established in line with the provisions of the Lagos State Tenancy Law, which regulates landlord and tenant transaction in Lagos State, it should also try as much as possible to lessen the burden in terms of cost, that tenants, go through in trying to secure a decent apartment in Lagos State. What I think they should do is to ensure that the payment platform covers all properties, rentals, properties in Lagos State. Of course, the government can compel all landlord owners or all house owners, all landlords, as the case may be, to register their property with the platform. Yes, the government has they have the mechanism, they have the institution, they have the powers to compel landlords to register their houses on the platform, so that they can regulate they can regulate the way these rents are being charged. Like the Lagos State Tenancy Law also provides that landlord must issue receipts to.
All right, Victor Jibunoh, we're out of time here, but we do hope that the Lagos State Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development comes out to clarify the areas that are not quite clear around this intending or this planned rent payment platform, so that everybody knows what it's about and what benefits can come from it. Thank you so much, Victor Jibunoh Esquire, for being our guest on Early Exchange today. And also, we want to thank especially Orji Chinedu Michael, who is a real estate coach and advisor, CEO, JADDON Properties. We thank you both for being on the show today.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you guys, or to join you guys. Always a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And Blessing AJ, thank you for being a part of the show today by watching. Tomorrow will be another day. Remember, that will be the grand finale for the week. Talking about L exchange for the week. So until tomorrow, enjoy yourself and be good.
Well, right here, we've tried so hard to shape policy and advance development, and we're not going to rest on our oars, because right here, we're talking SOUQ, we're talking news, we're talking share, we're talking views. So go on social media, share your views, like, comment, engage, and be a part of the conversation. My name is Temple Barra. Many thanks to everyone who has ensured that you can receive us wherever you're watching from. And until we come again, bye for now. Market Insight is up at 11.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.